I'm Amara Ndlovu, and when people see Sunvale Ridge Vineyard today, they think it was always beautiful. They don't know how broken it was when I found it. The land sat quiet in the Maquina Hills, weeds taller than my shoulders, vines dry and forgotten. I was 24, grieving my parents, and all I had was a little savings and a stubborn heart. Everyone told me to sell it. I didn't. I rolled up my sleeves and stayed. I fixed fences myself, learned soil the hard way, and slept in a tiny worker's shed with a leaking roof. Every cent I earned went back into the land. Some days the sun burned my skin, other days the rain washed away weeks of work. But slowly the vines listened. New leaves came, then grapes. Then the first small harvest that made me cry right there in the dirt. My parents were gone, and my only family left was my older sister, Zola. She lived in the city, dressed well, talked big. I wanted to believe blood meant safety. As the vineyard started getting attention, I asked her to help by watching the paperwork. Whenever I had to travel to tastings and trade fairs, I trusted her because she was my sister. As I wanted to. Year by year, Sunvale Ridge grew famous. Our wine was poured at high-end tables. Journalists came. Buyers called. I finally felt proud, not rich but solid. Independent. Built by my own hands. At the end of summer, I drove back to Maquina Hills for harvest season. The air smelled like ripe grapes and dust. The workers waved as I walked between the vines. I remember smiling, thinking, this is mine. I built this. I'm finally home. I was still writing the happiness of harvest season when my phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize popped up on my screen. Congrats on the $6.1 million deal. Well played. I stared at it, confused. $6.1 million? Deal for what? I laughed at first, thinking it was a wrong number. I even typed back, sorry, I think you have the wrong person. But before I could send it, another message came in. Then another. All congratulating me. All talking about a sale. My chest started to feel tight. I opened my laptop with shaking hands and typed the name of my vineyard into a property website. Sunvale Ridge Vineyard appeared instantly. Big photos. A bold headline. Sold, pending close. I felt the blood drain from my face. I scrolled down, praying my eyes were lying to me. They weren't. There was in black and white. Seller, Zola Ndlovu. My sister's name. I kept scrolling, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. The buyer had already wired earnest money. A serious buyer. A powerful one. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a mistake. My stomach turned. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. I remember gripping the sink, staring at my reflection, whispering, this can't be real. This can't be happening. I called Zola. Straight to voicemail. Voicemail. I sent messages. Angry ones, scared ones, begging ones. No reply. Back on the listing, I noticed something I had missed before. At the bottom of the contract summary was the name of the escrow office handling the sale. A real office. A real address. In Lamora City's financial district. That's when fear turned into fire. I grabbed my keys, didn't even change my clothes, and drove like I was running out of time. Because I was. My vineyard. My life's work. Being sold without my knowledge. As I pulled up to the glass building with the escrow firm's name shining in silver letters, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the door. I walked inside, my heart racing, one thought screaming in my head. Someone just tried to steal my land, and they used my own blood to do it. The moment I stepped into the escrow office in Lamora City, my legs felt weak. The place smelled like polished floors and expensive perfume. People sat calmly in leather chairs, flipping through papers, like nothing in the world could go wrong. My world was falling apart and no one could see it. I walked up to the front desk, my voice shaking as I said, I need help. This property sale, it's mine. The receptionist looked at me, then asked for my name. Amara Ndlovu, I said. He typed it in and nodded. Please wait. An officer will see you. Minutes later, a man in a dark suit stepped out and called my name. I followed him into a glass office. He sat down, opened the file, and started reading. I watched his eyes move across the page. Then suddenly he stopped. He looked up at me slowly, like he was seeing a ghost. Amara, from East Coast University? He asked quietly. My breath caught. I stared at him, trying to place the face, the voice. Then it hit me. The late nights. The shared instant noodles. The cramped dorm room filled with books and big dreams. Queasy. I whispered. It was Queasy Dlamini. My college roommate. The same guy who used to say we'd both make it big someday, even when we had only coins left for laundry. For a second neither of us spoke. The room felt smaller, heavier. Then Queasy leaned back, his voice low and serious. "I thought it was you," he said. "When I saw the name I couldn't stop thinking about it." He turned the screen toward me. The sale documents. The signatures. My name written neatly where I had never signed. "Something about this sale felt wrong," he said. "The story didn't add up. Your sister said you were overseas and unreachable. But I remembered how careful you were, how proud you were of that vineyard." My eyes burned with tears, not from relief but from the shock of it all. In a city full of strangers, the one person handling my stolen future was someone who knew my past. Queasy closed the file gently and looked straight at me. "If this vineyard is yours," he said, "then we're going to slow this down. But we don't have much time." And in that moment I knew this wasn't just luck. This was the first crack in a plan that was never meant to survive the truth. Queasy turned his screen toward me and started explaining everything slowly, like he didn't want my heart to stop. The documents showed that my sister Zola wasn't acting on her own. According to the file, she had power of attorney over my vineyard, full authority, the right to sell, sign and close the deal without me. I laughed once. A sharp, broken sound. "That's impossible," I said. "I never signed that. Never. Not for her. Not for anyone." Queasy nodded. "I thought so." He clicked to another page and zoomed in on the signature. My name was there, written smoothly, confidently. Too confidently. Queasy had already done something most people wouldn't notice. He sent the signature for a quick handwriting review. "An internal expert. She didn't even try to match your natural pressure," he said quietly. "This signature is forged." My hands went cold. Zola hadn't just betrayed me. She had committed a crime. Queasy continued, his voice firm now. "Zola had told the escrow team I was overseas and unreachable. That I trusted her completely. That this sale was my decision." She spoke smoothly, confidently, like someone who had rehearsed the lie many times. "The worst part came next. The sale is scheduled to close in 48 hours, Queasy said. 2 days. After that, the vineyard would be gone. Titles transferred. Money moved. My life's work erased with a few stamps and signatures. I stood up and started pacing. My chest felt tight, like the walls were closing in. "You have to stop this," I said. "Please." Queasy didn't hesitate. He picked up the phone, called legal, then compliance, then the bank. His calm scared me more than panic would have. He used words like emergency hold, suspected fraud, identity misuse. Each word felt heavy, serious, final. Within minutes, an emergency legal freeze was placed on the transaction. No money could move. No documents could close. Everything stopped. Queasy looked at me and said, "This will get messy. Once your sister finds out, she won't stay quiet." I swallowed hard. My sister had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. The clock was still ticking. But for the first time since that message, I could breathe. While the legal freeze held everything still, the truth about my sister started coming out piece by piece. Things I had ignored before suddenly made sense. Zola's designer bags. The expensive trips she never explained. The way she always seemed stressed but smiled through it. I used to think she was just doing well. She wasn't. She was drowning. Through the investigation, Queasy uncovered her debts. Massive ones. Gambling losses, private loans, people who don't wait politely to be paid back. Zola had been living fast on borrowed money, chasing a luxury life she couldn't afford. And when the pressure closed in, she looked for the fastest exit. That exit was my vineyard. She had promised the buyer more than just land. She offered future wine profits, exclusive export rights, even access to our growing brand name. She painted a picture of endless wealth, all built on something that wasn't hers to give. The buyer believed her, especially because he was powerful, politically connected, the kind of man people don't like to disappoint. Zola's plan was simple and cruel. Close the sale, collect the money, pay off her debts, then disappear. New city, new name, no vineyard, no sister. Knowing this hurt more than I expected. I sat alone in the escrow office, staring at the window, thinking about our childhood. How she used to hold my hand when I was scared. How I trusted her without question because she was my blood. Part of me still wanted to protect her. Another part of me felt something crack inside. "How do you choose?" I whispered. "Between family and truth?" Queasy warned me it wasn't over. "People who are cornered don't stay calm," he said. As if on cue, the office doors slammed open. I heard heels clicking fast across the marble floor. Agree. Familiar. I looked up just as Zola stormed in, her face tight with rage, eyes locked on me like I was the enemy. "You had no right to stop that sale," she snapped. And in that moment I knew this fight was no longer quiet. The tasting event at Sunvale Ridge had started like any other summer evening. Guests sipped our red and white wines, laughed under the soft glow of string lights, and marveled at the rolling vineyards. I was walking between tables greeting people, feeling proud when I saw her, Zola, striding toward me in heels that clicked like a warning. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She stopped in front of me, her voice loud enough for half the crowd to hear. "Amara," she said with fake sweetness, "I think everyone here knows you're not capable of handling these decisions. Maybe this is just another sign of your mental instability." The words hit me like a slap. Guests froze mid-sip, eyes darting between us. Zola leaned closer, whispering, "Just sign the papers. Give me your final consent. It's easier for everyone." Her grin was sharp, predatory. I felt my stomach twist, my fingers tighten around my glass. I wanted to yell, but instead I looked toward the entrance. That's when Queasy appeared, holding a thick envelope. He walked up beside me quietly and handed it to the event coordinator. "Legal notice. The sale is frozen. Any attempt to close without authorization is illegal," he said calmly. The air shifted. Guests began murmuring. Zola's face turned red with fury, but I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. The calm, quiet power of truth. I straightened my shoulders, raised my chin, and looked directly at her. "Zola," I said, my voice steady and clear, "you tried to sell my vineyard. You forged my signature. You lied to everyone here, and you almost stole my life's work. I trusted you because you are my sister. That trust doesn't give you the right to betray me." The crowd went silent. Even the musicians paused. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. People were staring, some gasping, some whispering. Zola's jaw clenched. She opened her mouth to respond, but I didn't flinch. "This vineyard is mine," I said, my eyes sweeping the room. "Every vine, every drop of wine, every sunrise and sunset I've lived for. It belongs to me. And no lie, no betrayal, no money can ever change that." The silence lingered. And in that silence I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time everyone, including Zola, knew the truth. The courtroom was packed, the air heavy with tension, the kind that makes your chest tight and your palms sweat. I sat at the front, flanked by my lawyer and Queasy, while Zola paced behind her table like a storm ready to strike. The High Property Court of Cambella wasn't used to family betrayals like this making headlines, and I could feel the eyes of reporters and spectators drilling into us. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, picked up the documents. "We will begin with the signatures on the sale of Sunvale Ridge Vineyard," she said. "Handwriting experts have confirmed these signatures were forged. Ms. Ndlovu, you never authorized this transaction." "No, Your Honor," I said, my voice steady despite the shaking in my chest. "I never signed anything. The power of attorney is fake. Everything is forged." The judge nodded and called the bank representative to the stand. The testimony was shocking. Escrow irregularities, unauthorized wiring of funds, pressure applied to close the sale quickly. The details painted a picture of deliberate fraud. Each word was a hammer striking the truth into the courtroom. Then came the buyer. He stood quietly, clearly uncomfortable, and announced, "Given this new evidence, I withdraw from the purchase immediately. All agreements are void." I felt a rush of relief, but Zola's reaction pulled me back to reality. She froze, then broke down completely under questioning. Tears, screams, and desperate excuses filled the room, but no one believed her. The judge listened patiently, her gaze unwavering. Given the evidence of forgery, fraud, and misuse of authority, the judge finally said, her voice heavy with finality, "All rights to sell or transfer Sunvale Ridge Vineyard are suspended. The property remains fully under Amara Ndlovu's control until further notice." The gavel slammed down. The sound echoed like a drumbeat of victory. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered. Zola slumped into her chair, defeated, while I sat back, letting the weight of the moment settle in. The courtroom emptied slowly, but the tension didn't leave immediately. Everyone knew what had happened. Betrayal, greed, and power had collided, and justice had won, at least for now. I breathed deeply, knowing the battle wasn't over entirely, but for the first time in weeks, I felt the vineyard was truly mine again. The day the verdict came down, the courtroom was buzzing like electricity. Reporters crowded the hall, cameras flashing, microphones shoved forward. I sat quietly, hands folded, my heart pounding but my face calm. After weeks of chaos, lies, and sleepless nights, this moment felt like standing on the edge of something I had fought for my entire life. The judge cleared her throat, looked at Zola, then at me. After reviewing all evidence, she said firmly, the court rules that Sunvale Ridge Vineyard remains 100% under the ownership of Amara Ndlovu. Any claim by Zola Ndlovu is invalid. The $6.1 million transaction is cancelled, and the buyer is released from all obligations. A hush fell over the room. Then the judge added, Zola Ndlovu is hereby charged with fraud, identity misuse and forgery. Legal proceedings against her will continue separately. I felt my knees go weak. Relief, disbelief, pride, all crashing into each other. After everything, the betrayal, the threats, the sleepless nights, justice had been served. Sunvale Ridge was mine, fully mine. The vineyard I had built with my own hands, sweat and heart had not been stolen. Outside, the media exploded. Headlines ran wild. Sister tried to sell vineyard out from under her family, caught in court, and Amara Ndlovu wins legal battle, vineyard safe. Messages and calls flooded in, congratulations pouring from friends, supporters and even strangers who had followed the story online. Kwesi stayed by my side through it all. He had been my unexpected anchor in the storm. You did it, he said quietly, handing me a folder with the final legal documents. Everything is officially yours. I smiled, not because I was gloating but because I had regained something far more important than money or fame: control, respect and peace. Zola's fury and tears were a distant noise compared to the sound of the vineyard in the wind, the scent of grapes and the warmth of the sun on my face. For the first time in months I could breathe fully. My vineyard, my legacy, my labor of love. It was safe. And now, with Kwesi as a trusted advisor, I knew I had allies who truly cared, not just for the paperwork, but for the person who had built this dream from nothing. Sunvale Ridge was home again, and nothing, not lies, greed or betrayal, could ever take that from me. After the courtroom's storm settled, life at Sunvale Ridge felt like breathing again after being underwater. I poured my energy into the vineyard, but this time with freedom instead of fear. The wines that once only reached local tables now found homes in restaurants and stores across the country, and even overseas. Each bottle sold wasn't just profit. It was proof that hard work, honesty and patience could triumph over betrayal. I didn't stop there. I remembered all the women I had met over the years. Farmers, workers and dreamers, who had the skill but not the means to grow their businesses. Using part of the vineyard's profits, I started a women-owned agriculture fund, giving small loans, training and mentorship to women who wanted to cultivate land, grow crops or start their own ventures. Helping others succeed felt as powerful as pouring the first glass of wine from my first successful harvest. Zola, of course, tried to re-enter my life. She came with apologies, tearful explanations, promises that she had changed, that she had learned from losing everything. But I had learned too, from her betrayal, from the courts, from sleepless nights of doubt and fear. I understood now that forgiveness didn't mean letting someone trample over your life again. I could hear her words without letting them shake me. I met her once in private and I chose boundaries over revenge. I said what needed to be said. She had hurt me and she could not be trusted with my life, my work or my peace. That was enough. No public humiliation, no retaliation. Just quiet, firm strength. As months passed, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't just a survivor. I was a leader, a visionary, someone who could take pain and turn it into purpose. Sunvale Ridge thrived, the women's fund grew, and I finally felt the calm clarity of someone who had reclaimed not just property but power, integrity and self-respect. The vineyard had taught me many things: hard work, patience and perseverance. But the hardest lesson was emotional. To rise above betrayal, to choose strength over anger, and to protect my legacy while still carrying kindness in my heart. I had grown beyond the fear, beyond the pain, into someone I could be proud of. And for the first time I knew I would never let anyone or anything steal that again. The final harvest celebration at Sunvale Ridge was everything I had dreamed it would be. Workers laughed as they carried baskets of plump grapes. Friends and supporters clinked glasses under the golden sunset, and the air smelled sweet with ripe fruit and fresh earth. Music played softly and children ran between the rows, their laughter echoing across the hills. I stood for a moment at the edge of the vineyard, watching it all unfold, and felt a deep, quiet pride swell in my chest. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in oranges and purples, I walked slowly between the vines. My hands brushed the leaves, feeling the life I had nurtured from the ground up. Each row told a story, years of sweat, mistakes, lessons and triumphs. I thought about trust, the kind I had given freely, and the betrayal that had tried to rip everything away. I thought about blood, family, and the messy, complicated ties that sometimes hurt more than they heal. And most of all, I thought about ownership, not just of land but of my life, my choices, my legacy. I stopped at the old wooden gate, the first one I had repaired when I took over the vineyard. The fading sunlight glinted off the glass bottles lined up for tasting, the grapes waiting to become wine, the earth that had almost been stolen from me. I smiled softly, a mix of gratitude, relief, and quiet triumph filling me. This vineyard had tested me, broken me, and finally strengthened me. And as I looked across the rows I had fought to protect, I knew the truth of one undeniable fact. She tried to sell my legacy, but the land knew who it belonged to.